Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our Packaging Speeds Green, an initiative set up by UCIMA, the Association of Machine Manufacturers for Packaging, that was organized in February 2020 in Bologna. And our goal was to keep the goals of sustainability with a high bar in terms of sustainable packaging. There were 500 participants, and after a month, there was a new lockdown. Nonetheless, we decided to organize this pocket IPAC-IMA during Meet Tech. And nonetheless, in Bologna, there will be the normal trade fair according to the calendar. So let me introduce straight away one of the protagonists of last year's Bologna meeting. She is connected from Australia, and I would like her to start as soon as possible because in Australia it's 11. Passo all'inglese per
very fond of Italy, so she I'm very grateful that she answered to our call, even if on a webcam. Even because I would say, Nerida, that the Packaging Speaks Green was a lucky event for you, because after that you were addressed as Vice President of Sustainability and Food Loss for the World Packaging Organization. So we gave you luck in 2020. So I'll leave you the floor so that you can tell us about the trends in sustainability and food loss from the World Packaging Organization point of view. So the floor is yours.
Thank you for the wonderful welcome, Gianpaolo, and to everyone in Milan. I am very sad that I can't be there with you. I had the opportunity to be with many of you last year, and I hope that I can see you perhaps at IPAC-IMA next year. So I would like to take the opportunity to thank UCIMA and to PAC Media for extending an invitation to myself and the World Packaging Organization here today. And I just wanted to share with you what the World Packaging Organization is seeing around the world in sustainability, and that's sustainable packaging design and also food waste and safe food packaging. So the World Packaging Organization has 60 member countries around the world, and we have many developed countries and we also have developing countries. So we do see things very differently in all of the regions that we take care of. The World Packaging Organization has three very important goals, and two of these goals actually sit within my portfolio. So number one is to reduce food waste, and number two is to reduce packaging waste, and three is to increase packaging awareness through education, because education is just so important for the conversation around sustainability and circular packaging design. So the WPO wants to target unnecessary packaging. We would like to encourage the phasing out of all materials that are not recyclable and problematic. And we would like to focus on the development and advancement of mono-material recyclable packaging. The World Packaging has a number of partners around the world, and we are continually expanding our programs and initiatives in this area. So what is the why? Why are we doing this? Why does the World Packaging Organization have these three targets? Well, there's 8 billion kilograms of plastic waste flowing in the ocean every year. And that's equivalent to 5 grocery bags of plastic trash sitting on every foot of coastline around the world. And this is what it looks like. So many of you would be very familiar with this. This is the Great Garbage Patch. But the problem that we have is the Great Garbage Patch is only one of 6 Gaias around the world. So this is a problem in every corner of the world. We also have another why. Less than 1/5 of all plastics is recycled globally. And at the moment, the highest recycling rates for plastic are in fact in Europe at 30%. Another why is when the plastic and the packaging is difficult to recycle and not being recycled appropriately, it ends up on the land, and it ends up in waterways on the land and in landfill. And in every corner of the world, you will see very similar pictures to this one, which is in Lebanon, and this one, which is in Cambodia. So we have a very big problem, and we need to start looking at what we can do to fix this. Another area that we see is very important for sustainability, and many people are only talking about packaging waste. And even within packaging waste, they're really only talking about plastic waste. But we think it's very, very important to remind everybody that food waste is actually the higher environmental impact in the world. And it's even higher than packaging waste. And food waste is the single largest material in the world that's sent to landfill. So when you're discussing sustainability and circular design, you also need to look at safe food packaging and packaging that can minimize food waste at the start. Now, there are many actions, strategies, directives, goals all the way around the world. But the most important ones are the Sustainable Development Goals from the United Nations, which is one of the starting points of this whole conversation, and also the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And from there, we have developed directives, pledges, pacts, strategies, but we're all trying to achieve the same thing. We're trying to design out waste. We're trying to minimize problematic materials, and we're trying to make sure that packaging is as circular as possible, so it's being used over and over and over again, and that everything that's put on the market is recoverable and recyclable in the country that it's sold in. So what we're trying to do is to educate packaging designers and technologists all over the world that we're trying to shift the way we think. And we need to make sure that we're designing for the end in mind, but designing that way at the start. Because if we can design better at the start, we're going to have a much easier time for recoverability and for recyclability at the end. So we need to remember that we want to design out all waste, all pollution. We want to make sure that we keep all of the packaging, all of the materials in use over and over and over again, as many times as possible. And we would like to also encourage regenerative natural systems. So we want everyone to stop and rethink the way you design your packaging, and look at the way that you're doing it and stop doing it that way, and try and make sure that you're designing for the end in mind. We would like you to also focus on reduce and then reuse and then recycle. And this is a really important hierarchy. So if you can start by rethinking and redesigning all of your packaging, then move into reduce and reuse, then it's going to make it much easier for recyclability at the end. And I wanted to share this video with you because I think this really puts it in perspective.
By 2050, there could be more plastic than fish in the oceans. Yet the problems start long before plastic reaches our oceans, rivers and beaches, and so must the solutions. We must tackle this flood at the source. We must eliminate the plastic we don't need. We must innovate. So all the plastic we do need is designed to be safely reused, recycled or composted. And we must circulate everything we use, making sure the plastic we produce stays in the economy and never becomes waste or pollution.
Join our journey to make plastic waste and pollution a
So the world of packaging is changing, and it's a really dynamic and ever-evolving time right now. And it's really exciting to see in all corners of the world what's happening. And one of the most important areas is extended producer responsibility. And depending where you live, it can also be called PRN, but it's a really important responsibility to put the responsibility back on the brands for everything that they're putting out into the world and taking responsibility for that. Another area that is really important for countries like Australia, in fact, that do not have an extended producer responsibility program, and we do not have levies or taxes in our region, but we have a very similar program in a voluntary commitment. So it's the same concept, but just not as tough in terms of taxes, levies, and regulations. But we are all trying to achieve the same thing. We're trying to make sure that we are making all of our packaging recyclable, reusable, and compostable. We want to make sure that we're incorporating recycled content in all materials wherever possible. And we would like to improve plastics packaging recyclability and phasing out and eliminating all problematic and unnecessary single-use plastics. So how are we doing this as a world? Well, one of the really important areas that we're seeing advancement in is in the plastic pack network, and that is growing on a daily basis. And in fact, Kenya just announced that they have a new plastics pact this week, which is wonderful to see. So there are about 10 packs around the world, and there are 2 regional packs. The regional packs being Europe, and then in my region, in all the Pacific Islands and Australia and New Zealand. But it's a collaborative, consultative model where industry works together to try and improve recyclability and design and eliminating problematic materials. Because 40% of plastics produced is packaging that's used only once and then discarded. And this is a problem. And we have started to see more and more around the world that single-use plastic directives and strategies are coming up in every part of the world. And this is a fantastic opportunity to get rid of all problematic materials and say no to single-use plastic. Now, Europeans have a plastic strategy, but so do many, many other countries around the world. And it's really fantastic to see that this is such a positive response globally. Another area that we're excited about is that the world is sick and tired of greenwashing, and we're sick and tired of poor consumers misunderstanding what's on pack and companies misleading consumers with information on pack. And it's becoming harder and harder every day for companies to do this. And we think this is a very important move to improve truthful and honest on-pack and off-pack communication. And obviously the European Green Deal is a very important aspect of this for your region. And we also think that it's really important that we are now making sure that compostable packaging is truly certified. So certified and approved and tested in the region that it's sold in, And all of the logos that you see on screen are to ensure and verify that the testing is correct and that the information is honest and that the consumers will not be misled and that they will be able to recycle the compostable packaging either in their homes, in a home compost bin, in a what we call a FOGO program, so a food and organics program, or in a commercial or industrial facility. We also are seeing a very big shift in certifications for paper, pulp and fiberboard. And again, this is a very important thing to see. So PEFC, FSC certifications, sustainability forest initiatives, but again, it's about truth. It's about honesty. And it's about making sure that consumers understand that this is in fact FSC certified or PEF certified and that it's above board and sustainable. Another area that we think is really important is when we're trying to work with packaging designers and technologists to design their packaging with the end in mind, it's also important that the materials recovery facilities around the world also understand the packaging design aspect. So we have seen a greater collaboration and partnership development in many countries where the materials recovery facilities are now working more efficiently with the brands and with the packaging designers and technologists and also the packaging materials suppliers. And it's about educating the whole ecosystem, the whole supply chain, that recycling is more than what the item is made of. It's about inks, it's about adhesives, it's about the size, the weight, and it's just so many things, and we need to work together, and the whole supply chain needs to work together, and the materials recovery facilities need to continue to collaborate and talk to the people who design the packaging so that we're all designing to make sure that it's recyclable and recoverable. Another fantastic initiative that I'm sure many of you have seen, and in fact trials are happening at the moment in Belgium, but the digital watermark initiative that's happening, the Holy Grail 2.0. And this is a really important advancement in technologies that could potentially improve recovery and recyclability of packaging. And we're certainly hoping to see the Holy Grail 2.0 in our region in the not too distant future. So there are multiple resources that help packaging designers and technologists to look at true recyclability and recoverability of packaging in materials recovery facilities. And the World Packaging Organization has joined a number of other organizations around the world, in fact, launching our first global packaging design for recycling guide. And we're really proud of this guide because it's a stage 1 global guide on a theoretical perspective on recoverability, state-of-the-art technology, recoverability for recycling. And the idea of the guide is to help people that are designing packaging, or even people like sustainability managers, environmental managers, people that don't really understand the technical aspect of packaging, but they can take this guide and other guides that are very similar, and it helps them to show them how to design their packaging to make sure that it's recoverable at the end of life. There are other guides that I'm sure you're very familiar with, and these are just 3 of many, but they're all very similar in that they are designed to help everybody to understand how to design their packaging at the start with the end in mind, which is really important for sustainability. Another area that we're seeing a really big take up in progressively around the world is development of container deposit schemes, or some countries call them return and earn. But at the end of the day, this is to improve quality feedstock for circular design so that the brands can recover a very high quality feedstock for their circularity. And it's also a really fantastic way to incentivize consumers to return their packaging and actually get some money for it. And I know I have a nephew that at Christmas time, when we used to be able to get together, he used to go and collect all of the bottles because he wanted to make sure he could earn some money, some pocket money. And certainly for the young children, this is a fantastic way to incentivize them to recycle. Another area that's really starting to take shape is return to store programs, or soft plastics, flexible plastic programs. And it's helping to incentivize consumers to return their soft plastics or flexibles back into store so that it can be recycled and recovered and repurposed for other solutions. And this is starting to take off around the world. And certainly in the region that I live in, it's a very successful program. And what does it look like after they recover it? Well, it looks like this. And again, you may have seen some of these solutions, but you know, a lot of the soft plastics programs are trying to make sure that it doesn't end up in landfill. So until we have high-tech advanced technologies, recovery technologies to collect soft plastics, we need a better solution than it ending up in landfill or in the oceans. So there are many companies around the world working really, really hard to take that difficult plastic and recycle it into something else. So it could be furniture like the children are sitting on, it could be a road, it could be a footpath or a patio or a garden bed, but it's one way to keep the products out of landfill and out of the oceans. Very topical area, and I'm sure you have the same conversations in Europe, but plastic-free aisles. Plastic-free aisles have been driven by consumers predominantly and the retailers because they're trying to lower their single-use plastic in their own ranges. There are challenges with this in large countries, in countries that have different temperature controls when they're moving it through the countries, but overall, in some countries, it's extremely suitable and certainly taking off in a lot of regions around the world. Refillable and reusable programs are also extremely popular, and every single day you see new news about another brand or another retailer taking on a refill and reuse trial. And we have in-store and we also have at-home opportunities for this. So you can order a lot of products online through programs like TerraCycle or Loop, and you can get all of your brands refilled and returned to you over and over again. Or you can go in store and you can pretty much take your own containers and you can refill in the stores. And these are fantastic programs, absolutely fantastic programs, and we're really looking forward to seeing these all over the world. Another really important area is on-pack labeling. And on-pack labeling, again, is getting there slowly, but there's still a lot more work to be done. But this is the one thing to help consumers. And it's again about truth in labeling. It's about being honest with customers and telling them that a product is recyclable or is not recyclable. And we want to do this in a way that's really easy for consumers, that it's intuitive for consumers, so that they can see those logos that are on the screen and they can pick up a product and see that and say, okay, well, I know that goes in a recycling bin, that doesn't go in a recycling bin. I have to return that component to store, but we want to see more of these around the world. These are just 3 of the programs in the world, and there are quite a few being developed, but this is a really exciting area that we're seeing, and we'd like to see more of this. Now, the last thing that I wanted to show you just very quickly was just some things that we're seeing around the world, some sustainable packaging that we're seeing around the world. Obviously, the World Packaging Organization runs their own annual awards program, which is the World Star Packaging Awards. And we have 2 really important special awards. We have a Sustainable Packaging Design Special Award, and we also have a Save Food Packaging Design. And the awards are designed to recognize companies that are working really hard in this space, because it's really important to recognize them. It's important to acknowledge what they're doing, even if it's incremental steps towards meeting the targets. We want to encourage companies to continually innovate in this space and to minimize their environmental impacts wherever possible. We encourage all of you to jump onto the World Packaging Organization website at any time and have a look at some of the winners, because there's some fabulous work being done in all corners of the world. And what we're starting to see is a lot more innovation in sustainable design. So things like bag-to-paper technologies that are suitable for multiple vertical forms fill and seal systems that are 100% recyclable. They no longer have laminates or films inside. They have no plastic coatings. They can be sealed without, closed without sealing, and they're extremely sustainable and curbside recyclable. There's been a massive shift, whether it's in meat or produce or even in consumer convenience, hospitality products, in fiber trays. So making sure that they're eliminating all of their problematic single-use materials, moving away from plastics, reducing their use of plastics, and also making sure that they have monomaterials so that their lidding and their trays are compatible and that they can be recycled through the curbside. And consumers are wanting this. This is what consumers are asking for, and they expect to see more of this. We're also seeing a lot of work in renewable materials, so bagasse trays, sugarcane, wheat and wheat trays, really smart, intuitive trays that, again, are reducing problematic materials, eliminating single-use plastic, and making sure that they're more sustainable wherever possible. And this one is actually a New Zealand company, but they actually took this one step further. They actually have a really smart consumer education piece that when you finish with this tray, they actually tell you, don't throw it away. Keep it and start to grow seedlings and plants in it. And there are many consumers in New Zealand that have a very active social media presence that show all of their seedlings and plants growing in these trays. There's also bagasse trays. There's also recycled PET bags. So on the left-hand side, you'll see a lot of produce bags now, and they're designed, you can buy them in store, and then you can keep them at home and then just bring them back when you go in store, and you can put all of your own produce in there. So all of your fresh fruit and vegetables, you just bring your own bag, and you don't have to use the problematic single-use plastic anymore, which is a great idea. I have these. I drive my husband nuts because I have to have everything in them. I absolutely love them. And they're all incorporated with recycled content, and they can be easily sanitized and cleaned. We're also seeing a lot of discussion about washable adhesives. So washable adhesives that are on recycled PET, so rPET, recycled content PET punnet trays, and the washable adhesive can be washed off in the recycling bath, so it becomes just a monomaterial, a clear PET that can be easily recycled. Linerless labels are also very popular at the moment, and they will continue to be. And we're trying to look at ways to minimize packaging wherever possible, particularly in fresh fruit, vegetables, and also in some of the meat items. This is for avocados, and this is to eliminate PVC inserts. So eliminating a material that is actually banned in many regions of the world and replaced with a fiber insert. It's also been designed with technical advancements in it, so it maintains the absorption and the temperature and insulation that's required to transport avocados and to keep them fresh through the supply chain. There's also a lot of work happening around trays, cartons, pallets, to make sure that they are more sustainable. And the most contentious one at the moment is those sticky labels on all of the fruit and vegetables. And there are solutions that are starting to come into play that are trying to replace those. And I know that France just recently banned a lot of the labels on their fruit, and there's certainly solutions out there that are more sustainable. And one of the examples is on the left, which is a laser. Wax cartons that are very difficult to recycle are being replaced at the moment, and there are quite a lot of solutions that are being introduced all over the world that are replacing non-recyclable wax cartons. And also the e-commerce delivery ranges there's a lot of work happening. So this one on the right is actually designed for all of the meats, seafoods, poultry, fresh produce that's transported in my region, and it is wool. And the wool has its own natural insulation. It is a compostable material, and the liner that you'll see on the outside of the wool is actually return to store recyclable. So it's actually all recyclable, but it maintains the insulation and the in the cold chain and the temperatures in the cold chain that are required, but it is a completely sustainable alternative. We're also seeing a lot more in wash baths, in fresh produce, and advancements in sustainable design there, and also in loose fill. So replacing loose fill polystyrene or loose fill EPS, and making sure that there are curbside recyclable FSC certified craft paper insulations. And that's extremely popular for e-commerce and home delivery models. But it's also about getting the balance right. And this is the challenge that packaging designers have. And this is a really hard area, because at the moment consumers are driving sustainability, packaging waste, plastics, and that's a very large, loud conversation. But what we're forgetting is what I mentioned at the start, that the environmental impacts of food waste outweigh that of packaging waste, but it's so under-discussed. It is an area that we are not taking seriously. We have 793 million people starving around the world. We have 1/3 of food that's produced in the world wasted, that ends up in landfill, that emits greenhouse gas emissions, but all we're talking about is packaging waste. So we urge all of our designers, when they're designing their packaging, to please consider safe food packaging design, and please consider the environmental impact of food waste, because it is an important area that we need to discuss more openly, and we need to discuss on a global scale. And it's about looking at ways to valorize products. And what I mean by that is there are many agricultural areas around the world that are ploughing food back into their field because the retailer won't take it, because it's not the right shape, it's not the right color, it's too small, it looks ugly. And so they are wasting that food that could actually be eaten, and they're plowing it back in the field. And what we're starting to see is that a lot of the growers are saying, we don't want to do this anymore. We want to make sure that we have a viable commercial solution. We don't want to waste food. So this is a perfect example. This is a grower of mini vegetables, premium vegetables that were designed for restaurants. And they had a very successful business growing these vegetables for meals, for main meals in restaurants. But then COVID came and they had no business, and they were plowing all of their food back into field, and they didn't know what to do. So they came up with a commercialized product that is now sold in 3 countries in my region, and they are no longer wasting that food. So they valorized the product and they commercialized it as a solution, which is a fantastic way to minimize food waste. And this is a very similar solution for avocados. This is a grower that he couldn't sell his avocados because the retailers didn't like the bruising and they didn't like the shape of them. And so he commercialized his product. He created an export market solution, and he also worked with a very smart packaging supplier to come up with a vacuum pack that extended the shelf life of this solution by 90 days. And in avocados, extending your shelf life by 90 days is significant benefit to have a very successful commercial product. So what is it about? What are we talking about? We're talking about rethinking and redesigning all of our packaging to make sure that it actually manages the recyclability and recoverability of the country that it's sold in. We want to make sure that we're designing out waste and pollution, and we must keep all products and materials in use over and over and over again for as long as possible, because we have a responsibility to the future generation to leave this world a better place than it currently is. So thank you so much. And I hope that helped give you a little bit of a perspective on some fantastic work that's happening all over the world.
Thanks, Nerida. It was, as usual, a bright picture of what's happening around the world. So we'll leave you go to sleep. Hope to see you live next year, and we'll keep our discussion.
So thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of the conference. And I hope that I will be let out of Australia next year, and I will come to IPAC-IMA and I will meet everyone.
Thank you. Hope
Bye. Bye.
Grazie Nerida di nuovo. Direi che ci sia stato dato qualche spunto utile.
I would say we received a lot of hints for the other speakers. So I start from Giovanni Regano, and data analyst of Centro Studi MECS, Mamoun, one of the buyers that comes from Saudi Arabia, manager of Herfy food service company, which processes meat and bakery, and then Mele, CEO of the Fabbri group, and Davide, Jarach, Vice President of Giflex, and Maurizio Bertocco. And I would like to say that our aim is to show how the industry and supply chain has welcomed the sustainability challenge. But before leaving the floor to the speakers that are going to talk about the their solutions. I would like to say that World Packaging Organization told us what the consumers want, what the companies are doing, but we asked in these 18 months what are the consumers willing to do, and how much are they willing to spend for a sustainable world, because the sustainability game is really hard. In the Western nations, it is a bit colonialism, where so we live in countries where our possibilities to spend are limited, and for our characteristics, low costs, and according to research done in these few years, we try to avoid childhood mortality. So I ask Giovanni to tell us if consumers are willing to spend more in this aspect, because industry is working on this, but in the next years, the industry has to sustain, to bear the costs of that. Thank you, Giovanni. I'm going to present a study carried out by Centro Studi MECS on the impact of sustainability on the consumers' choices. So the context has changed since the pandemic, and people are asking themselves many questions in order to change the habits. Half of consumers feel they are more sensitive to these topics, and this is due to the pandemic, because the people had more free time to inform, and their awareness on this topic increased. So we asked how much how influential is a company ethical supply chain when decided which products to purchase. So this perception impacts on the decisions in Europe for 37%, 32% in Asia, 17% in South America, and less than 10% in North America and the Middle East. And we asked the sample which were the fundamental characteristics of a product, and we are surprised that the packaging, the attention to packaging, so very bright colors of the packaging was very high. So they pay attention to materials, to recyclable materials, and that the packaging is a result of no waste cycle. Another factor that will influence the future consumers is laws and regulations, legislation that sets really strict targets. And for 2025, UK and Japan try to limit the consumption to single-use plastic, and for 2040-2050, the United Kingdom and Europe want to be climate neutral. And that's why it's important to see how the packaging in future will be. So they will be monomaterials, they will be recyclable, and some examples may be, for example, aluminium or steel cans, cartons or carton or paper cases in PET and HDPE, for example, that can be recycled, and all the losers will be the characteristics opposite to this. So, for example, materials which are less viable to recycle, and from this slide, you can see that 2/3 of the new packaging would be in plastic. So also the growth rate of the plastic packaging is higher than other materials. HDPE and PET packaging's will increase by 4%, followed by metal around 3%, and then paper with a growth rate of 2.3%, and then glass at about 1%. If we break down this growth rate in their geographical areas, you can see the slide here. So if we break down the values here, you can see that the highest growth rates will be North America and Asia. And North America is the area where the supply chain is less, influences less the consumers' decisions. So we have to consider this. For North America, the growth rate is about 4%. For HDPE, so plastic remains a fundamental material with great growth perspectives in future. So we have to wonder what's the origin of plastic in packaging, and I would like to tell you some company cases that companies that want to shift the plastic consumption. For example, Unilever, for the brand Mamoun, developed 100% recycled plastic boxes, and this plastic is recycled, but it has very good performances in the cold production, and Unilever announced to convert the production of toothpaste tubes made of aluminium to HDPE that can be recycled. So these toothpaste tubes can be 100% recyclable. And Danone decided to use a biosourced polymer that is non-renewable and non-biodegradable. Thank you very much for your attention.
Grazie Giovanni.
Many thanks. We finished your presentation with some case studies of companies. So I would really like to leave the floor to Mr. Stefano Mele of the Fabbri Group. They have been champions of sustainable materials. Oh, good morning. Good afternoon, sorry. You sent a presentation. Okay, great. We're ready. So, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for the invitation to this talk. I would like to tell you a little bit about what happened in Fabbri for a greater sustainability of our solutions. So, let me tell you who and what the Fabbri Group is. We are present in Europe and in Italy with numerous plants and branches, 100 million turnover, many machines, lines. And the specific feature of our business is that of developing both machines and films for packaging of fresh products. In this slide, you can have an overview of the stretch solution and the barrier solution. And here you can also see the line of our machine manufacturing line, which are used to pack and film the products. We use our own films, but also films made by competing companies. One specific element on which we have invested pretty much on recent years, and that I will explain better later on, is the development of alternative and innovative films. Amongst these, I would like to highlight Nature Fresh, a first ranking in the world, which is compostable. It can be used both automatically and manually. And this was our way of responding to the themes of sustainability. I will not dwell onto this slide long because previous speakers have already spoken about this. But from surveys, we have seen that manufacturing companies have to be active to achieve change. So they must promote change, companies must. And then another response from interviewees in surveys, consumers are willing to pay a little bit more for a packaging that is more sustainable and also biodegradable and compostable. Of course, these are answers that are given during the interviews, and we don't know what happens in supermarkets, but my doubt, in fact, is whether these are the actions that the consumers will put in place, that they are willing to pay 5 cents more to have a compostable pack. But what is sure is now that this is a very sensitive theme. And even if the consumer is not willing to pay a little bit more, well, they will choose a compostable pack rather than a traditional pack to buy a certain product. And then if the price is lower, then of course that product will have a greater possibility of sale. Even legislation is developing strongly, and we have to take care of how legislation evolves. Now let me focus on Nature Fresh. It is a stretch film for fresh products, packs, which is absolutely completely compostable. Therefore, it can be thrown away in the organic bin, or if you have a garden, in the composting patch. It is a see-through film which is also breathable. So it allows the product's shelf life to be longer, and we have received the approval and support of the European Union, which decided to fund and finance this project. But beyond this, which is of course interesting, we should also highlight that the European Commission declared that this is a project we have to invest for the future. So what are the features in detail. The remote doesn't work perfectly. I apologize. So, to start with, certification. The product has been certified by independent bodies, but also by Italian bodies. We wanted from the beginning, initially, to have an end life of this product in composting plants and be accepted by those bodies and industries that compost these products, so as to make circular economy come to life really. It is usable for domestic composting, well, not in cities, of course, but in, farming areas in the countryside where it is more possible. This film has even a better performance than PVC films for its transparency and breathability. This is one of the elements that is acknowledged and certified. So no plastic, it can be used on any type of product, even those that have a high fat level. It was awarded numerous prizes in Italy and abroad, in Europe, for example, because of its innovative spirit. In the function and application in meat, we have tested it out to see how to preserve this product by comparing it to PE, and we see that after a couple of days, in the PE film wrapped meat became darker. It did not occur with Nature Fresh because the vapor, the steam, does not develop inside, because Nature Fresh is breathable and so no steam forms. And so this means that the shelf life is longer at the supermarket. So it is made with the EcoVio. Nature Fresh has collaborated with BAF, and we are really very, very happy of our collaboration that has been started in 2016. And so quite some time ago. It's not something that you can invent during the night. You need time, you need investments. We have spent millions of euros in this process, and we are, seeing many good results. We've used the film also on machines, so for automatic use, we use more and more this film, which is used both domestically and at international level. Partners from the US, Germany, UK, that to use it for products that they want to launch in the market, international market, so both at home and at industrial level. And this is a spin-off that we had not imagined initially, but which is seeing quite a lot of success. We've used it mainly in meat, and one of these examples I'd like to show you. And so Westaway that adopted this system with Nature Fresh, with our machines as well. But Westaways, what I want to share with you is that Westaways increased the production of its sausages thanks to the fact that they could exploit this more sustainable pack, and you can see him in the photograph on the left, and he communicated this very openly and funnily. Irony is very important in communication, and this communication allowed him to differentiate his product on the market. Therefore, he attracted the new distributors and new consumers. This has made us to continue to invest and develop further our research. And now we are studying and researching barrier film. As I said initially, we make both machineries and films. So for MAP, so barrier films, we are now working on a 100% compostable film. We have manufactured our first reels. We have seen great results in our tests, and we are continuing the study of this new product, which we hope will achieve the same positive results of Nata Fresh. The compostable stretch film is already used by private labels like Pink Lady and larger distribution and hypermarkets, and this we hope will happen also for Nature Lived, which is a compostable barrier film. Now, just a quick comment vis-a-vis sustainability. Well, we need to measure sustainability. Nowadays, most brands declare, I am sustainable, I'm green, I'm this, that, and the other. But for sustainability, there are now solid ways to assess it. Normally, this is done with the life cycle assessment, i.e. an assessment of packaging during its whole life cycle. And with the LCA, we discovered many different things. Products that look dirty and unsustainable are instead advantageous for numerous reasons. We have compared here, not us, Fabbri Group, but the Parma organization of the university analyzed this carton pack and the carton tray with our Nature Fresh film. You can see here the CO2 quantity that is generated by the carton pack and the CO2 generated by the carton tray with the Nature Fresh wrap. As you can see, these are the figures. So the mixed solution tray underneath and compostable plastic on top has an impact of CO2 that is 44% lower than the previous one. So these are figures, these are facts. This is the evidence. So when you choose the carton pack rather than the film pack, I'm really scared for my grandchildren because we will generate more and more CO2 with the choice of this pack. We will generate more CO2 than the CO2 emissions we are generating today. So I really hope that decisions will be made not on ideas, but on facts, not on greenwashing, but on evidence. And I say this especially for our children, for the future generation. Now, going out of the framework of our activity of packaging, just considering the plastic bottles we see around, You can see at the bottom that the energy we use is lower for plastic than for glass. And so, obviously, the real problem of plastic is its collection and recycling. So this is where we need to act and find solutions, as in fact, there have been good solutions made available already at high level in Italy. So please do not make your choices because of greenwashing. Many thanks, Mr. Regano, Mr. Mele. So thank you very much. And now let's leave the floor to Davide Jarach, Vice President of Giflex, Flexible Packs. And he will tell us something about the members of the association. So I have received a question that I received on the chat box because all of our talks are also broadcast in streaming. And so from the streaming, I received this question. Consumers, how can they recognize the type of film wrap? Please find the right answer to this question. Well, thank you and good afternoon, everybody. The question is quite complicated, and it has been something we have been talking about in terms of labeling and branding this film.
Let's try to answer this question. So we should find a system that allows consumers, also those who wear the glasses like me, to recognize these labels. And all the speakers have covered some of the hints that I would like to give you. And that's nice because our contributions are consistent with each other's. So we talk about the end of packaging life, and I think that the end of life of packaging represents an important aspect. So we have to carry out a life cycle analysis, and I agree with it because I represent the production of flexible packagings, of course, and we have to fight climate change, and to do that we reduce waste, and to reach this goal we do a circular economy. But if we look at the life cycle of products, we see that flexible packaging contributes more compared to rigid packaging to the creation of to the emissions of greenhouse gases, and because in this case we use less packaging, and as producers we have been committing in order to find solutions to this direction, and we use low carbon footprint packagings packs. If I look at the phenomenon from the beginning to the end, and if we do analysis of glass versus plastic, glass is an important material, of course, but we have to consider the CO2 emissions. And I assure that if we replace plastic bottles with the flexible packs, the advantage is really higher. So we have to reduce our waste, and that's one of the goals we are working on. And the entire supply chain has to work on it. So that's an effort that has to be carried out by the entire supply chain. We have to do our part, but also the other players of the supply chain have to commit in this. And if you think of reduction, analysis can confirm these figures. Primary packaging in EU, excluding beverages, is represented by flexible packaging for 50%, more or less, in terms of units. But if you see the tonnage, it is 13%. So if we want to reduce the weight of packaging, we think that's a key factor, and we are working on it by reducing the weight, by creating thinner films, and don't forget that flexible packaging allows to fight against food waste. If we consider plastic as a negative effect, we forget the other part of the story. Yeah, the plastic-free segment is fantastic. It can be applied to fresh products, but then there are other products that cannot be bought without a pack. So, if the stores don't use the pack, then there are really heavy consequences. And if we increase the weight of flexible packaging, we'll get a reduction in volume of packs that is really significant. Another aspect we were talking about that is really critical for us, and we are focusing on this, is that we have to redesign the packaging. We are to talk with our customers, collect their requests, and offer some solutions in line with our aims. We have there are, of course, goals toward sustainability and less environmental impact, but we have to work on the entire supply chain, because we can do our part in designing packaging and packs, but those who produce machineries to use the pack, and I know that Stefano Mele has the same experience as I have, so he can confirm this. We have to work on machineries as well, because for those who produce a flexible pack, it's fundamental to cooperate with machinery producers and also with the final customers to collect their requests, their needs. And as an association, we launched an agreement between Ucima and Union Food, so producers of machineries and food, in order to work synergically in this direction. And the other effort we are doing as an association, and I speak on behalf of the producers. So as an association, we have concentrated on speaking with legislation, and that's fundamental for us lawmakers. So the approach here is different and varied regarding recycling. In flexible packaging, there is also paper. So paper is also fundamental. And we have a new agreement on the collection and management of compostable. And I think that Dr. Mele knows it more than me. And compostable paper was really difficult to manage in the past, because in the organic bin, if we throw compostable, then it is sorted out. So those who manage then the waste, the organic waste, have to recycle materials as well, but that's thanks to the new legislation. And so the problem of recyclability of materials also, and there are open questions that lawmakers have to clarify, because recyclability is really difficult to implement. What is really recyclable? That's really difficult to define at a European Union level, and those who know the sector can confirm that some countries are facilitating monomaterial recycling, and other countries prefer polyolefinic monomaterials. And other countries say that it's better to use polypropylene. So these differences in the European Union are very difficult to be managed. And then circular economy, and the question is how can citizens sort the waste. So we have to work together with the citizens to help them, because citizens have to know clearly where to throw the waste. And I have a vision of this world that is very broad. And for example, some materials have to be thrown away in plastics. And other people do not agree. So we pay a tax, and there are materials that are paired, coupled, and we do not if to throw them in the plastic or not, and we pay a tax for it. We pay a tax. So we should have a debate on that, discussions, also to WTE, for example, WTE plans. And a study was carried out on compostable materials, and according to us, the investments on chemical recycling say that also this polyaminate materials cost a lot. We have to accept its price. So we have to work on the supply chain. And so the association plays an important, a fundamental role. And some last information. So consumers' opinion. We think that packaging is fundamental to convey information, and the perspective, the consumer perspective on sustainability is influenced by packaging. So 1/3 of consumers says that it is important when evaluating sustainability. So the packaging is fundamental from this point of view to convey the message. Another aspect regards the function attributed to packaging. So most of people talk about conservation of products, then organoleptic properties, and it's important to define the sustainability of the product. And when we said that we have to pay for this, we have to be optimistic. All say that consumers won't pay, but that's not true. The majority of consumers won't pay anything, so 53% of them, but 47% of them would pay from 2 to 5% more. And for those who produce the packaging, 2 to 5% is much, because our price on the product is small. So we have an important room in this area, and our increase, our percentage increase is within this range, so between 2 and 5%. So what does it mean? Numbers have to be interpreted. So that's partially good news. And again, Italians ask for information on recyclability and sustainability. They want to know something specific. So recyclability is fundamental, but we need the support of lawmakers, because to produce flexible packaging that is in contact with food, recycled plastic is forbidden. We cannot use recycled plastic, so mechanically recycled plastic. We can only use chemically recycled plastic. And then we have the carbon footprint and other aspects. So we have to consider all these factors in a difficult balance between these aspects, and we have to cooperate to work with all the players of the supply chain to give a sustainable offer. Thank you very much. I think that you helped us understand this picture, and we covered other two topics that will be discussed next year, the end of life and the impact of the different legislations on recycling, so where waste goes after being thrown away. So that's a different topic we could talk about. And another topic could be the zero emission topic. Multinational companies are going toward this goal, but a question is where are these zero emissions then managed, at the end or at the beginning of the supply chain? And then let's conclude this talk with Maurizio Bertocco.
Maurizio Bertocco has fostered the Enable Factory initiative, one of the many initiatives that the supply chain has to show its collaboration, because as we have kept repeating, it's not one company that will be the winner, but it's the collaboration that can help us out of this situation and find the most sustainable solution. Thank you. So here we are ready to take the floor. Just a brief presentation of Ilpra. I am Maurizio Bertocco, CEO of Ilpra, a historical company that entered packaging when packaging was non-existent, so we nearly invented it from scratch. We manufacture trays with MAP, and we define ourselves as a system that prolongs the shelf life of fresh produce. I agree when they say that everything is going to be freshly presented in the shelves of the supermarket with no packs. No, this is impossible. We have to prolong the shelf life of products, because that is also a way of saving. So we manufacture machines for the sealing of trays. We want to claim that we manufacture everything 100% in Italy, and pushed manufacturing from designing to the processing of the sheets of the metal and the assembly, and we do everything and plan from planning to manufacturing. So, given the other speakers, I will not dwell on material. I would like to speak of sustainability and corporate sustainability, because we have to start talking uphill. Any producer or manufacturer of machines, films, material, whatever, is obliged, has the duty to maintain sustainability for its company. Sustainability was a word that was used initially in the 80s. Nobody spoke of sustainability before the 80s. So the 3 Ps, planet, people, and profit, that's the rule that we have to set forth. And often these 3 are difficult to put together. When talking about the planet, we saw before, a lot can be done. We should go in the right direction by choosing the right material, by educating people, because that is a very big problem. Education is important. So it's not the bottle that pollutes, it's the person who litters and throws it in the ocean. So most products are now, or packs are now recyclable with high percentages. And in Italy, for example, we are champions for recyclability. Nobody ever says we are always, the Italians, we always lag behind in Europe, but it's not true. With recycling on plastic materials, we are really ranking at the same level of the Nordic countries and even Germany. So when talking of a sustainable company, we need to assess how to make a company sustainable. First, by reducing emissions. So we keep talking of CO2. If we may reduce the CO2 emissions of a plant, of a factory, we have contributed to this goal. This can be easily achieved with renewable energy, so solar energy, wind energy. So we should really shift to this type of energy, and that would reduce emissions. In our company, we have a 70% coverage of the energy requests for production in our company, and we've done even more because we assessed and quantified the emission of our company. 60-70 is covered with solar power. The rest is not covered, but we mitigate it by planting trees. Our plant is in the countryside. We planted 5,000 trees that reduce and allow emissions to drop to zero. We have eliminated water and air discharges, and this means that we contribute positively to the concept of sustainable company. People, even people, when requiring a sustainable company, must believe in sustainability. They have to grow with the company and respect the philosophy and vision of the company. So design. If I design a tray, a bottle, etc., I have to evaluate its stability, its weight, its shape. But this holds true also for machine design. So nowadays we design machines that have very low consumption if compared to the machines of the past. So even this will allow us to be a sustainable company. Then we also need to take into account the wealth and the well-being of the people, so the people who work in the company and outside. So if you adhere to this mentality, the result is a virtuous cycle where everyone will try and do his best. Now, the last P of the 3 Ps, profit, which is absolutely necessary for a company. So if we are able to achieve the sustainability of the planet with better energy consumption, better ideas, better machine constructions, we have satisfied the first P with the people, the second P. But profit, well, profit is a goal for all companies, and you have to be quite reasonable and sensible. Profit that is gained should also be invested. When engineer Mele spoke of high investments for the research of a new material, well, this means that you invest your profit, your return in a new material, in new technology, in performing technological innovation. So most speakers of the panel have been working in this field, and we can really claim that the change has occurred, and especially so during COVID. Before COVID, plastic was considered the devil. Then we saw this phenomenon which was alarming. Many shifted to packs that looked environmental friendly, less polluting, that you know, for the average housewife were considered environmental friendly, but which in reality are worse than the ones we were using. COVID has stopped this negative hype and allowed companies to move towards monomaterial or polylaminates that can be recycled. So we have stopped this speech that Greta Thunberg has made famous. So if I want a new product, I cannot eliminate the old product. So if I do not find an alternative to the old product, I have to manage the old product in the best possible way. So which are the best possible ways? Polylaminates or monomaterials that can be recovered. So in my opinion, what we should do is to go in the direction of machines that need to be designed in lower emissions and collaborate with the manufacturers of material. We do not manufacture material, only machines, but we can have a say when a customer asks for suggestions. A pack, a tray that was considered, you know, safer and robust if thick is no longer real, is no longer true. The thinner, the lighter the tray, the better. Even the mineral water bottle, if it wasn't rigid, I said, no, I don't want it. They want to save on the pack. Well, nowadays, it's not like this. I lift the bottle and I say, finally, there's less plastic in this pack. I cannot conceive life without plastic, so we need to learn to manage it. Another important aspect where we are not doing too well is education. Who is the educator of the people nowadays? How can people understand what plastic is, how it works? Honestly, complex packs that really look great, that can be disassembled and then separated in the disposable elements, plastic and plastic, and paper and paper, is not user-friendly. My mom, who's 80, will not be able to separate this type of pack. Another example, bottles made in the material that can be compostable. Then what happens is my daughter had this happen to her, and she put the compostable plastic bottle in the organic bin, and the doorkeeper said, no, this is a plastic, you have to put it in plastic. So people are not educated. So this is key. If you do not give clear indications on where to dispose of the product, where to dispose of it, and precisely explain how CO2 is generated, well, this is of fundamental importance. You know, a glass bottle or an aluminum can or a cardboard box is considered as less polluting than plastic, but it's not true. So this is why we have to educate. So companies can communicate, can disseminate, can contribute, but they cannot think of educating the government, those people who are at the top should allow for education to be disseminated as it's best. Thank you very much. Thank you. And so now, before giving the floor to the last speaker, a last comment on education. Well, yes, this is one of the themes. It's not up to companies to think of that. We should nonetheless speak about it within the supply chain. So Greta is, you know, the person who is always quoted and cited so as to save the planet. So from large distribution to consumers, we, you know, run after more sustainable and green solutions to try and save the planet. So what I want to say is we have to organize more and more events like this one we're holding today to allow to educate and disseminate the correct information. Because of course you are working in your companies and you do not have enough time to communicate the positive things that are being done. Let's now dedicate the last 10 minutes of our conference to the speaker, Mohamed Mamoun, manager of R&D of Herfy Food Services Company, one of the most important companies of Saudi Arabia in the food. Let me go, ritorno all'inglese.
Abbiamo the importance of your group in your country. So if you can tell us some few words about who is your company and what you produce.
Okay. Thank you for coming, and thank you for the information what we get and all the value presentation what we hear today. Regarding for our sector, the food sector in Saudi Arabia is the biggest, and this sector around $25 billion. That's big sector. That has 8% from the all investment in the Saudi. And our part from this sector, our big chain, we already producer and fast food chain also. The important for us is the packaging material. So our looking for the attractive packaging material always to apply the needs for the customer. So that's very value for us. We find the machines, we find the packaging materials. And for the food, everybody knows, that's variety for packaging material. You have paper, you have plastic, and should all that's align with the food safety. How can I present safe food for everyone? I produce millions pieces per day for 3 sectors. I have frozen, as the same chicken patties, beef patties, fish patties, and fresh product as the same the bread that has 3 days on the shelf. How can I present that safe for the customer? How can I apply for him what he needs? So the green packing is the case for this time. Should be everyone care about this. We coming here for the meat show or meat tech, and thanks for the invitations. And we see a lot of value machines and value packaging materials, and that's really, you can cover part from the needs. You can find many things, new innovations, can give you good impressions about Italy industrials. How can Italy service you and give you what you need to apply and cover your needs for the customers? Regarding for the packaging also, our care as R&D, how can I find my target? My target, how can I reduce my storage, my cost, everything? How can recycle this? Because the government every year creation new rules. It should be the factory covering with the environment certificate. If the factory not align with this, the factory will stop. So I should be find contractors, I find good materials, because the contractor, if the material has problems, the government recycle factory don't accept it from him. So should be I working barrel and find the solution for this. So you find many things in the green packaging. Can you find in the show here? Can cover your needs. For the food also, very important for us, make attractive packaging. And that's need special materials, special design. Because the customer don't see the product inside the package. He sees the design and the paper and the plastic quality. And also that should be with the cost, align with the cost.
Of course.
That's on part from the industrial, the cost. So should be everything under control. We have project in the factory. How can you deduct from the recycle? Everyone can do something and has unique idea. How can reduce the recycle? How can reduce the waste? That's very important. Especially for my industrials, the waste coming from packaging. So should be I find the proper machines, proper material to minimize this. Because that's the last stage. The frozen or the bread or whatever, that's you can pack and you produce. The mass production, how can produce, how units per minute? Our talking about minutes, not hours.
Of course.
Because that's costly.
This is something that you are doing, as you are saying that, of course, you are here to find new solution, both material and technologies, to make your company more sustainable. But I'd like to address you a question: if this sustainability issue is driven by, as we were saying before, by profit or efficiency, or what's the role that customers play in Saudi Arabia? What I mean is that, are they asking for more sustainable products? And how is the recycling policy in your country?
Yeah, sure. The policy in the country now change for the last few years. And that should be aligned with the environment rules and coming more strict. So our here to looking for the unique idea for the good packaging, and we find many things. The situation also, the recycle for the materials is very important. How can I buy something and coming wasting? Or I'm not able to recycle this waste. So I coming to find something like this.
Very good. So we thank you. And as I told you when we meet before, of course, you need to come back next year because you will find more solutions in Ipakim. And then we will also have alongside a new show for green plastic technology. So you will find new solutions also for recycling and reusing plastic machinery. So I think that you will be here again and we will meet next year. Thanks for coming. Io ringrazio tutti per la partecipazione.
Al prossimo anno per l'IPAC-IMA. Grazie. Thank you everybody who have followed the talk. Those who are here at the exhibition and those who have been with us during the talk from home. So there have been a number of questions asked in the chat box. We will answer to them. See you next year, Green Plaster, Innovation Alliance and IPAC-IMA next year. Thank you for your attention. Bye.